Hey guys, and welcome to another week of Sunday School Stories. This is your girl, Jasmine Townsend. Hi, and we're officially in week 6. Is it 6? Yeah, it's 6. So this week, I promised y'all we would discuss a lot, but before we get to a lot, this week's stories is brought to you by Genesis chapter 17 through 19. Disclaimer, a lot is chapter 19. Don't worry, we'll get to him. It's just he's last. Because some things happen that's kind of, New Testament important compared to what happened with Lot. But y'all know Lot is near and dear to my heart because he's the reason I started this series. So let's just dive in because y'all know, like last week was weird. We had that old Ishmael thing going on where Sarah was just like, here, take my maid. And yeah, just take my maid, have a child with her, and then he can be the child that gives us all of these lovely. We all know how that happened. And well, if you don't know, go watch last week's video. So this week, God was like, you know what? I'm done playing with y'all. Like, I promised you, your descendants would be like the stars in the sky. You literally cannot count them. But what he did was God was like, you know what? I'm gonna change y'all's name because to this point, they were Abram and Sarai. God was like, you're not Abraham, and she's now Sarah. I mean, they're a couple of, verses apart, but they're both in chapter 17. And God commands, Abraham to circumcise all the men in his house, whether they were born in his house or whether they were bought with money, but they, reside or work within the house. He's like, if they're 8 years or 8 days or older, circumcise them. Y'all, Abraham was 99 at this point. Okay. So God then promises, to give him an heir, like a direct descendant through Sarah. Abraham laughed. I mean, y'all gonna see in like the next chapter, Sarah laughs to herself. Abraham laughed out loud. And in his heart, he was like, will a man that is 100 years old and a woman that is 90 bear a child? The first time they asked that question, right? But then Abraham asked out loud. He laughed out loud, asked the question in his heart. I don't know why. God could hear him. But then he asked God out loud, what about my other son? What about Ishmael? Like, why can't he be the promised son? Like, he's already here, That means, y'all know, they old. Like, by the time the child was born, Abraham would be 100 years old. I saw this Jennifer Hudson video the other day, and this woman celebrated her 103rd birthday. But she was like, still functioning, still moving around. She went to the J Hud show without a mask on. So she's obviously living life, I'm pretty sure if you would have asked her, hey, you want to go have a kid? She might have several choice words for you. So yeah, so Sarah's like 90 at this point. Abraham is like knocking on 100. And he's just like, what about the son that's already here? Why can't we just use him? God was like, no, we're going to use the son that Sarah's going to give you in a year. Yeah, see, he gave them a time this time because they know, because God knows. If he don't give them information, Sarah be done came up with another idea. so yeah, but then God was like, you know what though? I hear you though, it's not fair that your son Ishmael doesn't get like anything, right? So God is like, he's gonna be blessed as well. So don't worry, y'all. Stepchild, he's not redheaded stepchild. He still gets blessed. God's not that mean. So yeah. So then Abraham and all the men, 8 days and older, got circumcised. Could have been a fun day. Not really. I've heard it's quite painful. I can't tell you because obviously I'm a woman. I don't know. But yeah, they did it, everybody in that one day. So chapter 8, chapter 18. Nothing really urgent happens in chapter 18 because it's kind of like a repeat, but not really at the same time. So Abraham sees these 3 men and he's just like, yo, I got to get to these 3 men. And he gets there and they're talking. And then he's just like bowing down, like, yo, let me feed y'all, let me get y'all something to eat. And they're just like, go do what you said you were gonna do. So he goes, tells Sarah, like, hey, yo, make some bread. And I don't know, like make some bread, and you, servant, go get the cow, do the thing so we can feed these three men. And yeah, so again, these three men tell Abraham, like, yo, where's your wife? Where's Sarah? And he's like, she's in the tent, like that tent that I just came out of. I feel like this is another one of those rhetorical questions. They didn't really want to know. My opinion, I might be wrong, but y'all know how, like, back in Genesis, like after the sin, and God was like, yo, Adam, where art thou? But God knew where thou, Adam, was. I think it's kind of like that, where if he just came from this tent with food, most likely she's in the tent that the food came from. 9 times out of 10. But that's my idea. I might be wrong. But yeah. So then again, they say, your wife Sarah was going to give you a child, and Sarah hears it this time. And to herself, she laughs. She didn't laugh out loud like Abraham did. And God was like, yo, why is Sarah laughing? Is there anything too hard for God? And Sarah was like terrified. She was like, I didn't say that. I didn't laugh. Yeah, you did. They don't need to lie, Sarah. Just, believe. Just accept it. In a year, you're going to be giving birth to Isaac. And that's when he says, call him Isaac. So, and then, at the end of 18, it's like this weird clip where they're just like, yo, we're going to Sodom to destroy it. And Abraham, yeah, I remember that son, that nephew son, Lot. Spoiler alert, he's in Sodom. But Abraham was like, if you see this many, people living right, will you save the city? If you see, and the number keeps getting like smaller and smaller. He starts with 50, then goes to like 45, then like 20, then 5, then 10, or 10, then 5, I think it was. I think they stopped at 10. But yeah, that goes on for like a few verses where he's just like, if you see this many people living righteously, and then the number just gets smaller. And they was like, yeah, if we see 10 people, totally. If we see 10 people living right, we'll save the city. Spoiler alert again. I know this video is full of spoiler alerts. There is no 10 people, which is ironic because it's like Lot, his wife, 2 kids living with him. That's 4 right there. And then he has at least 2 more daughters and then son-in-laws. That's 8 people minimum. I don't know. But yeah, that's basically what happened in chapter 18. Chapter 19, as promised, is when Lot, main character in the picture. So 2 angels, they say men. In the beginning of the scripture, it says, I'm just going to read it. Now the 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. But if you fast forward down, they start calling them men instead of angels. I'm going to call them angels the duration of this video because they're an angel. I ain't gonna call no angel no man. I'm just not. But okay, so 2 angels came to Sodom, and Lot was there. And he, like I said, he ran to them and bowed and was like, come to my house, spend the night, wash your feet and, rest and, leave early in the morning to do whatever it was you were doing when you were passing through originally. And they was like, no, we're gonna, sleep in the town square, in the open square. But then Lot was like, no, you totally got to come to my house. You got to come to my house. You got to come to my house. And it's like, you know what? Fine. We'll come to your house. Whatever. So before, the angels and Lot fell asleep, like the townsmen, like the men of the town, came to Lot's house and was like, yo, where them 2 guys at? This is when they start calling them men, I think. But the townspeople, or the townsmen, because it's only men, old and young, but still just men. The townsmen was like, yo, where them 2 men at that we saw coming in through the gate? Where they at? We know they here. Bring them out. And Lot was like, no, I ain't doing that. You can have my daughters, though. They're virgins. You can have them. Do what you want to. But you ain't getting these angels. Right? Yeah. Yeah, just remember what time period this is and what daughters meant to a father. Like, they're not the precious little angels they are in the 21st century. So the townsman was like, no, We want the men that came in. We know they're here. Bring them out. And then the angels, you know what? The angels like, you know what? We've heard enough. So they grabbed Lot, closed the door, blinded the townsmen. So they was just like, where's the door? And yeah. And then they got tired and they was like, you know what? It's not even that serious. So that's when the angels told Lot, like, yo, tell your people, y'all gotta go. Y'all gotta leave the city. We're gonna destroy it. So Lot told his son-in-laws. That's where y'all remember the other two daughters, because he said son-in-laws plural that he told. So he has at least two of them. But he told them and was like, yo, they finna destroy the city. The angels are about to destroy the city. We gotta go. Son-in-law thought he was kidding. Right. So then he came back home, when then morning came, and the angels was like, yo, gotta hurry, destroying the city time, waiting on you. You found like you guys found favor in the sight of the Lord, so we're trying to save you here. And when they saw that, Lot, obviously not a morning person, was kind of dwindling and lingering around, they was like, you know what? They grabbed Lot's hand, his wife's hand, and two daughters that were still living, the ones that he promised to the people. Anyways, and grabbed their hand and led them to the outskirts of the city and was like, yo, go to that mountain. Lot was like, can we just go to that small city named Zor right there? Because at first the angel was like, yo, don't stay within the plains. Like, don't go to any city within the plains. And he was like, can we go to that city then? Like, Zor? Can we at least go there? And the angel's like, you know what? Yeah, why not? And when Lot and his crew, because it's a lot to keep saying, wife and two daughters, but Lot and his crew, when they made it to Zor, well, rephrase. We all know Lot's wife turned around, pillar of salt. So when Lot and his two daughters made it to Zor, that's when God started, raining fire and brimstone on the city. Right. And not just Sodom either. It was Sodom and Gomorrah that he destroyed. I guess it matters which city you go to. But then Lot was like, well, before I get to that part, Abraham came out, saw like to that same area that he was in chapter 18, where he was talking to the people, where he was talking to God. And when Abraham saw how it destroyed, Sodom and Gomorrah, knowing that his nephew was living there, he was just like, for like a split second, and then God remembered Abraham and told and was like, I guess Lot realized like, yo, let me show myself right now so somebody can see me. And then Abraham saw him and knew he was okay. So then Lot was like, I can't stay in Zor. I don't know officially why he was like he couldn't stay in Zor, but he just knew he couldn't. So they continued on to the mountains like the angels told them to originally. And yeah, but here's the true end of the story, because nobody really talks about this part. I don't know why not, because it's important, like it's anyways. So when they got to the top, Lot was like, yo, I'm tired, I'm going to bed, right? So then the older daughter, she was like, yo, the older daughter tells the younger daughter, like, yo, there's no men up here, and we got to continue, our father's lineage. So they was like, she was like, we need to get daddy to drink some wine, and then he can lay with us, and then we can see, carrying on his lineage, right? And that's what they did. The first night, the older sibling does it, and she goes first. They give him some wine. I don't know where that wine came from, but they had wine. And then yeah, so he drank the wine, got drunk, laid with his daughter. And then the next night he did the same thing, but with the younger daughter. And they both conceived. The older daughter, we don't even learn their names. That's the crazy part. Let me make sure. Yeah, we just learned the two daughters. We don't even know their names. But basically, the older daughter, she conceived, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing these names right, Moab, and the youngest daughter conceived Ben Ami, and they're both considered the fathers of different nation. Moab is the Moabites. Ben Ami is the Ammon. It's 2 M, so I'm feeling more Amon. But yeah, so that's the story of the name change for Abraham and Sarah, the promise of Isaac, and the story of Lot that we all kind of know, but not really know, or at least I didn't really know. So yeah, per usual, I usually have 3 lessons. I still have 3 lessons. This week they don't really have titles though. They're just lessons that I relearned while rereading this section. The first lesson comes in chapter 17. So most people don't believe this, but there is power in the names. Otherwise, why would God change them? Like, why would God legit spend 2 verses out of the Bible to say, I changed their names? Because the name change, even though both of their name changes were, kind of on the minor side, they still had a different meaning because of their name changes. So we're going to talk about Abraham's name change to give an example, because yes, Sarah is important, but Abraham, I feel like it really shows how important a name change can be regardless of how simple it is. So Abram, the name he was born with, means exalted father. Ironic, right? Since it took him 70 something years to become a dad. Maybe it took him 70 something years to learn to become a dad. But Abraham means father of multitude of nations. See how that's different? Exalted means they're raising him up, versus father of multitude of nations means he has multiple nations. And y'all know it's so weird, because think about it like this, right? Abraham had Ishmael and Isaac. Yes, the descendants of Ishmael matter, not for this description. But Isaac had, Jacob and Esau. And we all know about Jacob and his 12 tribes of Israel. Man had 12 kids. That means what? That means great-great-granddaddy Abraham had 12 tribes. That's 12 nations that he was granddaddy to, which means what? He had multiple nations. And then of course we know Moabite. We know he had descendants. We know he was a father of nations as well, but his nations, they don't really go into much detail because we know Jesus came from the lineage of Judah. That's a fun story, because Judah came from the wife that Isaac didn't even want. Oh, I promise I can't wait to get to that story. Okay, lesson 2. God can be time specific when he wants to be. Because think about it like this. The first time he gives that covenant, he's just like, you're going to be the father of nations. Like, look at the stars in the sky. That's how many descendants you're going to have. He didn't tell them when. And then what happened? We got Ishmael. Again, I'm not dissing Ishmael. Ishmael had his purpose, But we all know when it comes to the promised land and the covenants of God, that was an Isaac thing and was supposed to only be an Isaac thing. Ishmael was a byproduct of Sarah getting impatient because she didn't know when it was supposed to happen. And then she didn't even... Y'all know what happened last week. She was mean to that woman while pregnant with Ishmael. I'm going to leave that alone because, under the dirt. This is me sweeping it under the rug. All right, number 3. Just like names are important, lineage is important. So be careful who you be having these kids with, women and men. Like, women don't just be laying with every man, and man don't be laying with every woman. I mean, sometimes it matters. And when I say sometimes, I mean all the time. It matters. Don't just be having kids, just be saying, just so you can say I'm a parent. No. So the example for this lesson is Lot's daughters. But 21st century, I know it's weird to think that the daughters are just like, yo, we got to carry daddy's line. And there ain't no men up here. So we just got to lay with them so we can continue his lineage, continue his legacy. So they did. They both got him drunk, laid with him, and conceived. Now, this is different than Noah's son. Which one was it? Ham? That just saw him naked. This is different. They saw him naked and laid with him so they could continue his lineage. Whereas Ham was just like, why is daddy naked? There's no purpose for Ham to see Noah naked. Y'all see the difference? Like lineage versus just seeing your daddy naked. So yeah. So what do you think? What are your thoughts? Like, tell me, first of all, can we finally admit that it's quite hilarious? Of all the ways to be destroyed, she turned around and got turned into a pillar of salt. Like, when I think of Lot's wife, I just think of, how like you smell something and you know what's happening, so your instincts say, "Oh, you got to see what that is." What's that smell? Whether it's a very good smell or a bad smell, and you just gotta real quick. She's literally the epitome of curiosity killed the cat, because she was just like, "Yo, I'm gonna look at the city that's being destroyed." Ooh, blue, kill us all. But also, for a quick, brief second, let's talk about the men that got blinded. Because they never said that they got their sight back. They just said they grew tired looking for the door. Could you imagine being blind? Like you're going from perfectly healthy to maybe not perfectly. They were healthy in a way to being blind to being dead. I swear, God's angels are hilarious to me. Like some of the ways they use to punish people. Like John's dad. I'm talking John the Baptist. I'm talking New Testament. Like when the angels was just like, don't say a word until your son is born. I'm sorry. God's angels are hilarious to me. But that's the end of this week's story. And I hope to see you guys next week. Bye.